مشاهدينا مرحبا بكم في حوارات السياق. بعد سنوات من القطيعة عقب اندلاع الاحتجاجات في سوريا منذ نحو 12 عاما واصطفاف الحكومة التركية إلى جانب المعارضة السورية، برزت مؤخرا مؤشرات تقارب تدريجي بين الحكومتين السورية والتركية. للمزيد من المتابعة حول هذا الملف ينضم إلينا جوشوا لانديس مدير مركز دراسات الشرق الأوسط في جامعة أوكلاهوما. أستاذ جوشوا، شكرا لانضمامك إلينا.
It's a pleasure.
دعنا نبدأ من آخر التطورات. الزلزال الذي ضرب البلدين، هل يمكن أن تصلح النكبة والمأساة ما أفسدته السياسة؟
Well, that's the great hope. Syria needs to have a rethink. The sanctions regime, which has been imposed on Syria, and the isolation has not been working. It hasn't changed the political architecture in Damascus, and it's unlikely to change anything significantly. What it is doing is it's hurting the most vulnerable Syrians, women and children. As we know, Syrians are living, 90% live under the poverty line, tons of refugees. The situation is miserable, with about an hour of electricity a day for most Syrians. So this is something needs to change, and hopefully this earthquake will put into process some of that change. And we've already seen, for example, President Sisi in Egypt step forward and send his first telegram to the government in Damascus. Some of these changes are taking place, but there's a lot of bickering still going on between all the different actors in Syria.
بما أنك جئت على ذكر العقوبات، النظام السوري يقول إنها تعيق وصول المساعدات، فيما تنفي الولايات المتحدة ذلك. من نصدق هنا؟
Well, of course, the United States says it's not affecting humanitarian aid. It has to say that, but it's not true. All the banking effort, you can't send money to loved ones who are desperately in need of help. All the banking has been closed. The SWIFT codes have been closed. You can't transfer or wire money to anybody in Syria. You have to go to a Hawala system, which is just ineffective. So, and more than that, the United States and its allies, the Kurdish in the Kurdish region, have all of Syria's oil. We desperately need, Syrian government and the Syrian people desperately need fuel. They don't have enough fuel, and that means that trucks can't get to the places they need to go. People can't transport. There's no heat. People are freezing in the cold. This is the problem in Syria. Nothing is working. And a large impact is because of sanctions.
بالعودة إلى محور نقاشنا، كيف تحولت العلاقات بين سوريا وتركيا من حسن الجوار إلى العداوة؟
Well, things went from bad to worse because most of the international community thought that Assad was going to fall in 2011. Were eager to have him fall. It took Turkey a little bit of time to come to that decision, and President Obama pushed Turkey not to deal with Assad and to support the opposition to Assad. But he did. Once he realized that Assad was not going to compromise, he did support the opposition. But today, Assad remains in power. He's unlikely to leave Syria. And that means that the sanctions regime and all the difficulties are just going to go on and on. And Turkey is realizing, and I think Erdogan is realizing, that he needs to change his policy towards Syria. He wants to send refugees home. He wants to have the Syrian government protect the borders of Syria so that the Kurdish opposition to Turkey, the groups that are connected with the PKK, the Kurdish Workers' Party, and that Erdogan sees as terrorists, are not allowed to go to the border. And he wants to get the Americans out of Syria. And all of that requires cooperation with Damascus. And so for those reasons, he's looking to change policy.
طيب، هذا فيما يخص المطالب التركية لتطبيع العلاقة، لكن ماذا عن المطالب السورية؟
Well, Syria needs it desperately too. Look, Turkey, it's a Turkish Air Force and Turkish military that's protecting the rebel areas in the northwest of Syria. That's both the Idlib province and North Aleppo province. And because Turkey is supporting them, the Syrian government can't retake them. And Damascus wants to retake those areas. It also wants to drive out the independent, quasi-independent Kurdish region, which owns about 25% of Syrian territory, most of the oil and gas, and much of the best agriculture. So Assad has has many incentives to work with Erdogan. Of course, he doesn't want to make concessions. He doesn't want to give autonomy to the Kurds, and he doesn't want to give a political role to the Syrian opposition groups that are in the northwest.
أفهم من حديثك أن الطرفين لديهما مطالب مهمة ومعقدة. العقدة هنا هل هي أزمة ثقة أم أزمة مطالب؟
Well, it's both. Of course, there's tons of distrust. Neither leader likes the other. They're swallowing their anger and their resentment towards each other, but they have to find a modus vivendi, and that's what they both said, that we cannot pursue this war forever. So I think they are ready to make concessions, but there's a very difficult negotiating problem, because what do you do with the 4 million refugees, rebel fighters, and the leadership in the northwest? Will they leave Syria? Will they come back under Syrian government control? And that's a very difficult question to answer.
هل تعتقد أن سوريا وتركيا ستتوصلان إلى اتفاق على المدى القصير؟
Not in the short term. I think this is going to take a long time. Already we've seen some small little moves, such as along the major highway that goes from Aleppo to Latakia, which the Syrians want back. The Russians have demanded that this be back. It's part of an agreement, and so that's the Turks have already been moving away from that highway and talking about joint patrols with Russia in order to open up that highway. So there are little moves on the ground, but the big issues still remain to be solved.
لكن هل يحتاج أردوغان إلى إبرام الاتفاق قبل الانتخابات؟
Yes, he does. The elections are coming up shortly in about 3-4 months. So he doesn't have a long window. I think talking with Assad is important. He wants to send, of course, Syrian refugees back into Syria. This is going to be very hard to accomplish. The Turks are fed up with having so many Syrian refugees in their country. It's costing them a lot of money, and their patience has run out. And so that's one of the leading reasons that Erdogan is talking with Assad and the Assad government. And so that's going to be hard to do, particularly with this earthquake, which has caused so much destruction in the northwest of Syria, where Erdogan intended to send those Syrians. So it's going to be very hard to get a lot of immediate action in the next 4 months.
ماذا عن قوات سوريا الديمقراطية؟ ما مصيرها حال اتفق الطرفان؟ وهل الولايات المتحدة ستقف متفرجة أم ستقدم الدعم لها؟
The Syrian Democratic Forces in the Kurdish-controlled region, the northeast of the country, their fate. Turkey has been leading a campaign against them, particularly brutal one in the last few months, because it has accused the YPG, the dominant party in the northeast of Syria, of carrying out a terrorist operation in Istanbul just a few months ago. And so there's been a lot of drone assassinations of top Kurdish leaders in the northeast. And the United States, which is protecting this area, has done very little to stop this. And clearly the United States needs Erdogan to help in the battle against Russia and in the war in Ukraine. And Turkey is juggling these two issues and telling the United States, you want help? You need to leave northeast Syria, and you have to stop arming and training and supporting the YPG, the Kurdish forces in that region. And this is very difficult for the United States to do, and for President Biden, who has said that he will stay in that region under his presidency.
نعم، لكن العلاقة بين الولايات المتحدة وتركيا لا تبدو في أحسن أحوالها. في خطابه بالأمس الرئيس بايدن لما تطرق لضحايا الزلزال في البلد الحليف والعضو في الناتو، أليس كذلك؟
You're absolutely right. Relations with Turkey have been very testy. And Turkey, as you know, is stopping both Sweden and Finland from entering into NATO, demanding that they take action on the YPG against Kurdish members of their country that have refugee status there. And this is partly a negotiation with the United States over its status in Syria. Erdogan is blocking this. He's also been allowing Russians to do their banking in Turkey and to trade with Russia. So these are all sore points for the United States, and Erdogan wants to see some forward movement on the United States leaving northeastern Syria and cracking down on the YPG. And that's caused a lot of strain and difficulties in these negotiations, but it's brought Erdogan and Assad closer because they both agree that they want the United States out of northeast Syria.
أستاذ جوشوا لانديس، شكرا جزيلا للمشاركة معنا في حوارات السياق.
It's a pleasure joining you.
مشاهدينا، شكرا على طيب المتابعة. إلى الملتقى.